All right, GM, thank you all for tuning in today. This should be a magical session. I am Marcus with Near Foundation, and today's theme is making blockchains invisible. This is essentially done via chain abstraction, which is one of Near's main focuses and strong points, which is also demonstrated by some of the leading dApps in Web3 that are also built on Near, such as Sweat, Kai-Ching, Hot Wallet, and now DapDap climbing the ranks. We're incredibly lucky to be joined by two leaders around the narrative today. We have Illia, co-founder of Near Protocol and CEO of Near Foundation. We also have Jaemin, co-founder and CPO of Magic Labs. Again, really appreciate all of you tuning in, and I'll go ahead and hand it over to our speakers today to introduce themselves and dive right into it.
Hello. Thanks, Marcus. Great to be here. I'm Ilya, co-founder of Near, the locus of chain abstraction. And yeah, I'm really excited to talk with Magic. I think we've been talking and working in some way since 2019. So really awesome to have you here.
Hey guys, nice to meet you. I'm Jaemin. I'll do a quick intro myself. I'm a co-founder and chief product officer at Magic. And I went to University of Waterloo where Vitalik also went. And that's what really got me interested in jumping into Web3 since 2016. And then we started in 2018. So it's been about 6 years. So time really flies. And yeah, we've really been on a mission to solve onboarding for the mainstream and especially like Web2. And we've been working with really renowned companies like Mattel, like Barbie dolls and Hot Wheels NFTs, and then like Macy's, Mattel, Poly Market, and then Immutable and so on. And yeah, like we've scaled our company to be really focusing on wallet as a service, and then servicing that to be reliable, like scalable, and all of that to be able to onboard Web2. So here I am.
Awesome. So I think the kind of to start us off, right? The idea to talk about chain abstraction and how we're really trying to make the blockchain invisible to the users, and especially obviously the onboarding part, but also throughout the journey. So kind of one of the key element of any user journey is how do we onboard users in such a way that they don't need to like install something, fund something, figure out what 0x addresses mean, etc. And we need this approach to really make sure like Web3 is more available than Web2, right? It's easier to onboard, it's easier to use, it has this composability that anywhere you go, you kind of bring your own account with you and your own data. So how does Magic been kind of thinking about this? And what have you been kind of building as well as, establishing or evangelizing in this area?
Yeah, so in the beginning, it was really about how to abstract away seed phrases and then just not relying on the user to manage and then secure the seed phrase, right? And because seed phrase was pretty much like your like whole treasure account. And on top of that, what we really focused on was Web2 UX is really great already. And people, especially like the normies and like the mainstream users, will not sacrifice UX to, I mean, they will need, I think at some point they'll know the value of Web3 and they'll probably graduate to a certain point that they want to manage security and all these other aspects of like Web3 on their end. But in the beginning, it's really important to onboard them through Web2 UX. So how we tackled in the beginning was really going after the existing Web2 authentication mechanisms like email, social login, like SMS, etc. And then using that as a way to make it really easy for developers to add that UX so that they can start onboarding Web2 users. The space has definitely evolved now, and what we've been really focusing on lately, on top of what we've been doing with the developers, is tagging along with the existing identity providers. So I would say one example is Mattel. So Mattel, they're like the manufacturer of like Barbie, and then Hot Wheels and lots of IPs. And they pretty much had a shop built using Shopify and then Auth0 and these existing web services. And they wanted to introduce wallet, exactly like completely behind the scenes without introducing any Web3 UX. So we pretty much built this, like, we had this wallet as a service product, right? And that's pretty much our de facto service that we provide today. And we were able to offer a solution where they could just literally embed wallet behind the scenes. And we like to call it invisible wallets, so that the user can pretty much just go through a Barbie or like a Hot Wheels NFT purchase flow without having to, with just similar to like a Web2 checkout flow on top of Web2 authentication. So that's what we really unlocked. And how we view the future is really, yeah, like the Web3 should be completely abstract away behind the scenes. I really love how you guys are like looking at chain abstraction as well, because as Magic, we've been working with many different blockchains as demands come in, right? And then there's always this question of like, how do we introduce the chain when, because like a user may have assets in one blockchain, another blockchain. So how do we abstract that away and then really make it easy for developers to be able to manage that, but at the same time not introduce any chain concept to the user. And I think this is like the next step that the space really needs to focus on top of what we're doing right now.
For sure, for sure. So I think like around this areas, I mean, on our side, we kind of been following this philosophy from the start as well, trying to really simplify onboarding, make sure that users can start interacting with applications without even having kind of tokens for gas fees. Let's just dream for a second and imagine we're having this spaces 1 year from now. And we really have, rolled out this chain abstraction vision across the board. And how do you think the changes will be happening around, like, not just Web3 applications, but how will this propagate into, some of those bigger brands, but also the experiences that people have right now? Kind of what are your thoughts here, and like what is the interesting experiences that we can bring that are really unique to kind of Web3 way of doing things?
Yeah. So I think there are two main things. One is, like you said, gas, right? I think abstracting away gas completely, where pretty much in Web2, everyone builds on these infra services like AWS, like GCP, et cetera. And these businesses pay for the service costs, right? So I think hopefully a year from now, the gas fees with account abstraction, which has been talked about a lot, and it's been it's been a great development that we've been seeing from the last 2 years. Hopefully with that, and we can abstract away the gas fees and make it really easy for the developers and these like businesses that I've mentioned to be able to pay on behalf of the users. So that's one. The other one is I think when it comes to these tokens or NFTs, et cetera, like they should be kind of disguised as, like, for example, NFTs. Like Mattel, they disguise as more like a digital collectible, right? And then these businesses could launch their NFTs not just in one chain, but many different chains. And then they shouldn't need to show which chains these NFTs are from. And maybe one real life example is like, I like to use like hotels like Marriott and like Hyatt points. And then it's easy for you to, let's say if you own like an Amex card and then you accrue points there, it's easy for you to transfer that over to Marriott and start using it. And I think that's the type of UX that we should probably we should definitely aim to achieve, where if you're going from like Ethereum to Near, and let's say you have certain loyalty points that you've built up on the app, and then the same business has like another app which can be complementary to the first app, like that should be where the token should be like easily transferable, and then disguised as like loyalty points or some form of like Web2 points that users should be like really easily understand. But yeah, behind the scenes, like I think that should all be abstracted away. And then the most important thing is that developers for developers, it should be very easy to adopt that. So that's how I see it.
Yeah, I agree. I think maybe to just paint a picture, you can imagine applications which now inside them aggregate kind of experiences and smart contracts from different chains, be that tokens or actual DeFi vaults or some kind of games that use things from multiple chains. But as a user, you don't need to think about the kind of underlying infrastructure. I mean, the example I like to use is when you go to Netflix and you're choosing a movie. It's not like you're first choosing a data center from which you're gonna watch, then you'd like topping up, money on that data center, and then the data center actually is like too busy right now, so you need to like top up more. No, you just choose a movie and like actually it underneath routes you to the data center that's closest to you that has this movie and streams it for you. So I think
Right.
like we really need to get to that level of experience, and then yeah, you can have like a subscription on top of it or some form of whoever provides you this experience can take a fee when you're like transacting value, and kind of pay for the infrastructure under the hood. And you still, because like all of these pieces like underneath are still permissionless, you can interact with them without this, but this gives you this really easy experience on top. I think DApp is a really good example of this, where they aggregate over 14 different layer twos, 150 smart contracts, all in one experience, and really provide kind of a single place to see your assets, your interactions across all these chains. And so I'm really excited to see kind of what can we do that really transform that. I think a really kind of interesting examples of this approach is how does this push when we start talking about, for example, social, right? We have near social and forecaster, which are doing this thing where you can like embed applications directly into your feed, right? So imagine you're on Instagram, right? You have your account, kind of Web3 account, and you can actually like transact directly and interact directly with some of the posts there. So those experiences, and the posts may be coming from different chain, they're like NFTs, or maybe they're like applications themselves that do something when you interact with them. But all of that is kind of hidden from the user, and really just allows you to kind of easily experience and engage with it. So that's kind of where I'm like thinking, okay, how do we push this kind of experiences to the end user, get it in front of them, and really enhance kind of the experience that we want, and then go for all of the users.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah, so I think maybe worth talking about developers here, right? Because I think that there's a spectrum of like technologies that really form this, as we called it last week, cake, chain abstraction, key elements. And so on your side, right, you're obviously offering kind of an SDK for developers to leverage. How do you think, like going forward, um, how do you think developers will be engaging with this? And like what would make it even easier, right? To ensure that we can onboard a lot more developers building on this.
Yeah, I think for developers, like these days I'm seeing three different like VM demands, right? So there's obviously EVM, which is the most popular. And then I think SVM is starting to get popular as well. And there's Move VM led by like Flow, Aptos, and then Sui. And then there'll be more, right? Like Cosmos and I think for developers that are coming into the space, not the core Web3 developers, they already know which chains to build on top. They're very familiar with it. But also for them, how we're looking at it is like maybe we can improve the developer experience for them, at least on the SDK integration side. But for the new ones that are coming into the space, I think it's important to have them really focus on what kind of dApp or app they're trying to build. Some may require like high scalability requirements, right? Some may be more interested in certain protocols certain protocols that they know of in certain chains and how they can use that. So ideally, how we're thinking about is like maybe in the future, a developer comes in, they're like these preferences, and then certain requirements that they they check the boxes, and then we recommend just the SDK right away without even needing to like expose all the chains. The other way to think about it is like how developers they want to use like JavaScript and many different SDKs. Maybe we can. I'm not sure if it requires the abstraction of the chain. Like I know there's like chain SDKs we already present today, but maybe like that can be abstracted away in a form of like yeah, going back to requirements. And then I don't know how we would call that, but it's like a slightly abstracted away SDK where they can just focus on the building right away, right? And hopefully in the future, like the gas costs and like the bridging, all that can be abstracted away as well, so that developer can really just focus on building the dApp and focus on the use case. Because I think even right now, the most popular use cases in Web3 are more like degen focused, I would say. We're starting to see, I would say since 2022, after the NFT bull market and after it brought like mainstream awareness around NFTs, we've seen a lot of businesses, like even Fortune 500 companies that came in and then wanted to implement NFT, whether as like a loyalty or like as a data play, or as like just a simple digital collectible. And it's great to see them coming in, but at the same time, I think it's very important for all of us to promote innovation around the use case. I think even to this day, there's a lot of infra innovation going on, which is still very important. Like a couple of years ago, like gas costs were being talked about, the gas cost as in like the high gas cost. I think that really prevented us from being able to think about the new use cases, like the potential of the new use cases. But I think right now with the L2s and L3s, like gas costs are starting to come down. I think it's still high, but eventually I think it should be a lot lower, and I think it will get there. At the same time, like I do see like chains more like verticalizing, and I think that would be like a suite of tools and like strengths that developers can distinguish and then use. So yeah, that's how we see it.
For sure, yeah. I mean, you mentioned abstracting the chains. That's exactly what Near is doing with kind of our suite, offering a way to pretty much with one account to transact and interact with applications across like any chain with smart contracts on any chain.
Yeah.
As well as own assets and engage with them. And that a very powerful primitive because yeah, it pairs up well with kind of the model you guys are pushing forward, but then offers a whole spectrum of kind of like experience enhancement, right? And a lot of new developer kind of application that people can build, everything from multi-chain interactions to being able to pay for transaction fees with assets on different chain to actually having kind of a one account to and you can navigate anywhere in the whole Web3 to transact with it. So
yeah, like just to add on, like we, as I said, like there's Fortune 500 companies that we've been working with, and they're on different chains. And one question that they always ask is like, I think everyone knows that for Web3 to flourish, like it has to be like interoperability has to be tied into it, and that's a strong value prop of Web3. And right now, since these businesses are built on different chains, even if they want to work together, there's a lot of plumbing to be done and beforehand to be able to achieve so. So I hope that like with chain abstraction, when these businesses want to upgrade, but also the new businesses that are coming in, like that, hopefully that's not a problem at all. And I think that's gonna be a strong tool that we can use on the Magic side to be able to enable them and then actually see an interoperable use case happening within Fortune 500 companies. I think that's gonna be like really strong for Web and really great for Web3, because like we've seen that in the degen market in Web3 and how grateful that was in terms of like DeFi and NFT. So yeah, I'm really excited for that.
yeah, for sure. I think the ability to pretty much with one account, to own an NFT on Polygon that gives you some loyalty points that then you can use on, Optimism, that then potentially something happens on Near when you do that. Like that kind of experiences and making sure that's really simple to build. That's will be a pretty big unlock. And really tying all of those pieces together. So yeah, really excited for this. Let's make it happen.
Yeah.
What is kind of on your side been questions and concerns around security, right? Because I think one of the challenges this space has is we promote security, right? We talk about decentralization, but then at the end we need to like day-to-day secure users. So I'm curious kind of what have concerns been, and also like how you're addressing this, and how you're focusing on this.
Yeah, it's very interesting. When we started out as Fortmatic in the early days, like that was more like a single sign-on wallet that offered email logins, like SMS login, etc. And for that, Magic owned the UX and UI. So we had the ability to add more security controls, and then yeah, be able to protect our users. But as mainstream onboarding, as we've been diving into more about mainstream onboarding, and as we've been working with more like Web 2.5 businesses and Fortune 500 businesses, the requirement is more like they want the wallet to be fully hidden, right? The concept of all Web3 to be fully hidden. And that's a tough task when it's a single wallet, like global wallet being offered, because for certain people, they want to completely highway everything. They don't even want to show, let's say, like wallet transaction signing modal, right? So in that case, a bad developer can potentially trigger a like SDK method that can withdraw users' funds. And I would say even to 2022, I would say most people were storing assets in EOA. I know there's like Gnosis Safe, Argent, etc., where crypto savvy and people that are aware of security would be using that, or obviously Ledger as well. But you know, like the most mainstream, they would be storing all their assets in EOA, and then that made it very challenging for us to really think about how to how to serve these Web 2.5 with their UX requirements. And how we're tackling now is we have dedicated wallet, which is really like the silo wallet that sits within the dApp's scope. So we give the dApp the control over how they want to define UI UX, and the attack surface area is not as big, right? And the dApp that's servicing their users, they are they're incentivized, but also they're responsible for defining the security of their users. And really it's about onboarding. It's not like we're onboarding them to, you know, transfer all the assets from the bank to like Web3. That's not the main goal here, right? It's the way we see it is like beginner should be onboarded first. And for beginner, it's like a simple step. It'd be just like maybe buying one NFT, like through like a NFT drop, or like NFT, like secondary NFT purchase, or just even interacting with a dApp that doesn't require any asset purchase. Like that's been the main like general use case that we've seen so far. But going back to the security part, like we have, you know, DeFi dApps, and then we have companies that are from the fintech areas as well. And for them, we do have the security features that are complementary and additional than like the main UX that we've been seeing with other businesses so far. So how we've been treating it is really we provide step-up security features for the dApps to turn them on. And I think that's that's been a flow that's been working really well, at least on the siloed wallet space. Now, when we talk about global wallet space, this is where I think there are a couple ways to go around it. One is obviously like a global like a wallet, and I think in the future there will be something like PayPal or like Venmo, like Robinhood, or like WeChat, like a super app that people will be familiar with. But for that, I think the security will be controlled by the business that built that service. And hopefully in the future, like maybe we can use AI plus like other like surveillance or like intelligence related services to be able to smartly help these users step up their security. That does not require like a manual input. It can just be automatically done. And I think that can be done either via like a super app. And I think there's like a middle world where there'll be like a good synergy between like siloed wallets and global wallets. So similar to, let's say, when I talked about like Amex and like a Marriott, like Marriott loyalty points, I think that can be done with like a siloed wallet. But let's say like Amex, these like payment providers, I think that could be more like a analogy that can be used to represent like global apps. So users, they know that they use Amex for their day-to-day, and then they have Marriott and all these other like different use case focused apps. And And I think loyalty points would be just one form, but tokens would be tied to both finance and these loyalty, and I think that's gonna be very great. But yeah, I think they should be able to easily move between silo wallets and global wallets, and that's how I see the world going towards. And then on the security end, it'll just to take it all back and summarize for the silo wallets, how we're treating it is we have all the security features built. Developer can decide how to step it up for the end user. For the global wallet, it would be the business that would really need to own that responsibility of define the UI UX from the beginning on the security side. So that's the position that we're taking as of currently.
Yeah, that's an interesting position. I think we've been taking a little bit maybe a different approach, although some components of it are similar. So one of the things we've done on Near from the start is we allow multiple access keys on an account. So even, I mean, kind of any single account can have, as much access keys as it can pay for. And
Yep.
that allows to do a few different things. So the example that you described, right, where you want to have an app that potentially sends transactions, and they're hidden from the user, like the user doesn't confirm them, they don't go to like external wallet. So this actually works really well with having kind of limited access keys, which specifically work for like sending a transaction to a smart contract. So like we can actually limit it to only send this to smart contract, pay up to this much gas, and to these methods. And so we have, for example, games and kind of even an order book DEX where you deposit assets first, right? And then you can actually trade within that with this limited access key without needing to go and sign every transaction. So I think that approach has a lot of merit. And then the kind of what we launched with Chain Abstraction is this idea that actually like we have remote accounts, right? That kind of the network signs for. And I think the cool kind of approach there will be indeed having kind of a single address per interaction. And so if you have privacy for those linkage, you can actually have now a way to detach accounts between different interactions, which I think is probably one of the most absurd state of the crypto that, if I send you some money for coffee, then you now know everything I've done in my life.
Yeah.
Like every single thing I've invested or aped into. And
Right.
so like actually being able to like still control it through one account, right? Have one wallet from a user perspective, but then kind of detach all of that interactions on chain, I think is like really powerful approach. And I really hope we can get a lot of this kind of in production, this year to really enable both privacy, but also the kind of the experiences you just mentioned, right? Like, you're using different, cards or whatever in different places and just settles underneath.
Right.
Kind of without you as a user, like, oh, I need to pay now my bill here or whatever. So I think those are definitely like an important direction where we need to continuously refine the experience, because I think, and this is where I think personal view of Web3 maybe clashes a little bit with, when we talk, especially folks that you mentioned, right, that want to hide Web3 completely in their apps, is like having a single account is so powerful because it enables this composability that you cannot do in Web2. And it's totally understandable that like when we're onboarding, especially Fortune 500 companies, right, they want to have their own account for their users. They kind of have a way to potentially like reach out to them, etc. But I do think figuring out how to make that transition into like a single shared account is really important, because that's actually where the value starts to really flow. And like as we discussed before, if that user also using another thing, which potentially on another chain, if those are different accounts, like now linking all of that back and being able to interact with different like NFTs here, loyalty points there, it's just becoming super complicated for the user, right? Like a user, you need to go and like link your account somehow and kind of prove it, and then like your potentially your interactions now require like signing or like going into multiple apps, right, to do stuff. So I think like supporting a way to link accounts is powerful. One of the things, I mean, with remote accounts, we can do actually is we can pass ownership of remote accounts if they are created properly or like created in a specific way. So there is an option where you can actually onboard, this bigger existing existing user base clients, and then user kind of merge their account, like that account in with their, main account like later. So maybe an experience like that would be interesting where you kind of start like fresh, but then you merge it back into your existing system.
Yeah, I agree. Like I think like the single account really unlocks the value props of Web3, and also that's just gonna help level up just the industry overall. Um, from where Magic is currently at, how we see it right now when we talk to these businesses and Fortune 500 companies, they first want to build their own ecosystem. So I think what you said applies at a smaller ecosystem to begin with. So like maybe like yeah, definitely we can work together. And let's say like Mattel, like they would have Mattel Marketplace, and then they would have let's say different Mattel like divisions, and they want that interoperability to be first happening within their ecosystem. And that's what we see as like the next step for this year likely. And then I think in the future, we want that to be even a bigger ecosystem, and it's just one like single Web3 ecosystem. And I think at that point, like the single account will be very powerful. And we always like to say like the graduation path, like beginner to intermediate to expert. And Magic, how we can contribute to Web3 and how it can be providing value for the Web 2.5 companies is really focusing on the beginner level. And so far, yeah, just to reiterate, the siloed wallets and then the smaller ecosystem has been more of a demand for us. But yeah, like the features that you've said, I think will be very helpful for us to unlock these experiences.
Awesome. So maybe we can kick it off to see if people have questions. I think like I've been talking a lot about chain abstraction, so especially last week in Denver. So I'm kind of interested to see what are the questions people have, and maybe we can answer them.